fast forward.
Into the Darkness, Part 5. Important, be sure to read Dreams of Destruction, Part 6, before listening to this biocast. Motoro felt like he was in the middle of a nightmare, and he dearly wished he could wake up. On his journey with Makuta and the reanimated Toa Tuyet, they had been attacked by Karzani, the mad ruler of a realm of misery for Matoran. Karzani sought the staff of Artaka they carried, but Makuta was not about to give that up without a fight. When the battle began to go against him, Karzani summoned a horde of Manus crabs to his aid. Manus. The word meant monster in Matoran, for that's what they were. The Toa of Ice's heart froze as the Manus moved in. He hurled his ice power at them, but they shrugged it off. Once it had taken 6 Toa to stop only a pair of Manus, and now he and Makuta faced hundreds. Strangely, the Master of Shadows did nothing. He didn't hurl shadow bolts or chain lightning. He just waited and watched until the crabs were well within striking distance. Then he reached out with his mind, his most powerful weapon. Using his power to control beasts of land, sea, and air, he seized control of half the Manus and turned them against the others. It was a horrible sight, as the huge Savas Manus tore at each other. Karzani looked on in shock as his army disintegrated before his eyes. Motoro looked away. Makuta simply laughed. "Pets," said the Master of Shadows. "They do make such a mess. Perhaps, Karzani, I should set the survivors on you." Now it was Karzani's turn to smile. He had powers of his own, powers Makuta could not hope to cope with, he was sure. Triggering his ability, he thrust a vision into Makuta's mind. Now Makuta saw, as surely as if it were really happening, the future day when the Toa Nuva would awaken the great spirit Motunui. He saw Motunui rise, whole for the first time in 1,000 years. And then he saw the great spirit's power surge through the universe, seeking out those who would dare to rebel against him. He saw the terrible vengeance of Motunui, and knew the final punishment that waited for him. And Makuta screamed. To be continued in Dreams of Destruction, Part 7. Into the Darkness, Chapter 6. If Makuta was at all rattled by his fierce battle with Karzani, he didn't show it. Nor had he displayed any particular emotion when he and Motoro had met with Makuta Icarax, who had brought the staff of Artaka to the waters above the pit. He had simply taken the object from his fellow Brotherhood member and dismissed Icarax with a nod. Now he and Motoro stood over the shattered remains of Toa Tuyet's armor. A single fragment of the Nui stone gleamed in the darkness. "That is all the staff needs," said Makuta quietly. "One piece, and its power will recreate the stone as it once was." "And what good will that do you?" asked Motoro. "What do you plan to do with it?" "Very well, my curious little Toa," Makuta replied. "Think on this. Tuyet and later Nadiki were not the only Toa to ever turn bad. And if the next one should happen to fall under my sway, well, what better than to use the Nui stone to increase his power 100-fold, 1,000-fold? Imagine an all-powerful Toa at my command wiping your kind from the face of this planet." Makuta aimed the staff of Artaka at the Nui stone fragment and triggered its power. Slowly the pieces of the stone began to float through the water, drifting toward each other, joining together for the first time in 1,000 years. "I can't let you do this," yelled Motoro, charging forward. Makuta waved his hand, and a stasis field froze the Toa of Ice. "And I can't let you stop me," said Makuta. "No one can stop me now." A blast of sheer raw power struck the Master of Shadows squarely in the back. Makuta staggered, dropping the staff. "Who dares?" he snarled. "In my time, I've dared lots of things. Maybe too many things," came the reply. "I fell a long way from the light, and I can never find my way back." Makuta whirled. Hovering in the water was Brutaka, former guardian of the Mask of Life, now mutated prisoner of the pit. Wisps of energy were still drifting from his open hand. His body had changed, twisted spikes now jutting out of his armor and what looked like a long dorsal fin running down his back. Brutaka stood, ready for battle. But the darkness is not so complete that I can't recognize a monster when I see one. Makuta hurled a blast of shadow energy at Brutaka. The warrior sidestepped and dove past Makuta, snatching up the staff of Artaka even as he shouted, "Botar!" Events happened quickly then. The Order of Motunui agent known as Botar appeared suddenly in the midst of battle, taking the staff from Brutaka. He spared a moment for a nod of thanks to his former teammate before vanishing once more. "It's gone," Brutaka said to Makuta. "The staff is gone where you cannot reach it. You've lost." "If I have lost the staff, you are about to lose everything," said Makuta. Brutaka did not tremble at the threat or back away. Instead, he just laughed, a long, hard laugh with a little trace of madness in it. "You seem to have me mistaken," he said, "for someone who has anything at all left to lose." To be continued. Into the Darkness, Chapter 7. "Get out of here, now," Brutaka shouted to Motoro. "Get back to the other Toa. I'll handle Makuta." "As you handled the Toa Nuva and the Toa Anika," sneered Makuta. "Are you fool enough to think you can trust him, Motoro?" Toa Motoro weighed his choice. Brutaka had once been a member of the Order of Motonui before he had turned bad, but Makuta? His spirit had been black from the day he had been created. There was no choice at all. He swam away as fast as he could, heading for a rendezvous with his teammates. "You cost me the Nui Stone," growled Makuta, hurling a burst of shadow energy at Brutaka. "You have become an annoyance." But the shadow bolt never reached its target. Triggering the power of his Kanohi mask, Brutaka opened a dimensional portal and shunted the energy into the zone of darkness where it could harm nothing. "Then let's see if I can move up to an irritation," said Brutaka, firing his own blast of energy from his sword. The blast knocked Makuta's weapon from his hand. "You know, Makuta, we could do this all day, but it won't get you what you want." "And that is?" asked Makuta, even as he used his control over gravity to slam Brutaka into a nearby mountain. "Ow," said Brutaka. "Well, you don't want the Mask of Life. If you did, you would never have hired those bumbling Paraka to get it for you. But you do want to be there when it's found, pulling everyone's strings. You want to decide who has it, how they use it, and when. Am I getting warm?" "A little too warm for comfort," answered Makuta, throwing a stasis field around Brutaka. But the former Order of Motonui member demolished the field with one swipe of his blade. "Please," said Brutaka, "I was getting out of stasis fields when you were still on Destral raising archives moles." "What is it you want, Brutaka?" "Once I would have said I wanted the mask myself," Brutaka replied. "Once I would have seen myself ruling a universe with it. Now I guess you could say my vision's improved, and I just want to see you sweat." Brutaka smiled. "Oh, and by the way, Nocturne had the mask last I saw, but Hydraxon was about to take it away from him, and who knows what that lunatic will do with it, so maybe you better go see." Makuta's instinct was to continue the battle, but Brutaka was right. He couldn't afford to lose control of events, not at this late stage. "This isn't over," warned the Master of Shadows. Brutaka ran a finger along the razor-sharp edge of his sword. "Oh, Makuta, I'm counting on that." To be continued.